Well, Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for your help and helped me launch my 3D printing adventure. I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, thank you. So the idea of a hackerspace is that you bring people together who have interests and maybe dissimilar backgrounds or similar experiences or very different experiences, and you bring them under one space. It's just like a gym club for people that like to build stuff. And so you can come in, you can use the tools, you can use the equipment, you can get training, you can get instructions, meet up with other like-minded people, and work on projects together. Now the thing a lot of people neglect is that it's not all about the tools, it's all about the people. So the people that you can bring together are the most important asset, and the tools are a secondary asset. So Sector 67 got started about 5 years ago, which makes us one of the earlier hackerspaces in the US and one of the first in Wisconsin. When I graduated with a master's degree in mechanical engineering, I rented a building, the building that we're in now, and I hoped that it would work out. I signed a personal guarantee on a 1-year lease, and I hoped people would show up and use it. When I was a kid, I used to go run over to my neighbor's house, and my neighbor had a welder, he had a car lift, he had a acetylene torch, he had all the necessary tools to be able to work on a car. And so that was my sort of primordial hackerspace. Further than that, it's really thinking in terms of a farm. So farmers are the earliest hackerspace operators. Those are the folks who ran to their neighbors and said, hey, you've got the tool that I need, or can you come down and help me fix my tractor or get my equipment working again? This has been around forever, this idea of sharing tools and ideas and resources. It just hasn't been done in inner city areas or downtown areas, and I think that's really the biggest difference with the hackerspace and what's been done in the past. In the past 5 years, we've had a little over 500 members, and having folks come and go is a healthy thing. So at any one time, we've got about 100 members who are active. Our membership's all month to month. So people can join for a month or join for a year or do whatever they like to do in terms of what timing works out for them. But we've had just as many people who have no formal training in anything as there are people who've got a PhD in physics and maybe a master's in engineering. And I'd say that's the underlying theme with the people that are here, is that everybody likes to build things. I think what it really comes down to, though, is having somebody around you to egg you on. I think that's what a hackerspace really exists for, is to draw together people who go, I've never done this before, and somebody else looks at them and go, oh yeah, I had to do that last week. Here's what I did, and here's what worked out well, and here's what didn't. And I think that's the differing element between reading online and being on a forum and being in an environment with a bunch of people who are working on things together, is that you get the true, you bump elbows with somebody who's doing something totally different than you. One of the members is really into taking USGS survey data and then compiling it into something that's either 3D printable or routable. His company's called My Square Foot, but he makes these brilliant maps and routes them into a piece of wood. This one's been milled out of a piece of pine on the CNC router, but you can just as easily print one of these off. We've got another member who worked here who's actually making frying pans in the shape of the state. And so she's got all the US states all made out of cast iron, and they're actually usable frying pans, so you can use them as a wall decoration as well. One of the members built a penny farthing, which is an old-time bike with a giant front wheel. This is a laser-cut wooden hat, and one of our members has a patent on this tab and slot construction system. There's no glue and no screws holding this together on the top, and it's essentially just held together under its own tension. This is bending plywood. And then it's been laser cut and laser engraved. Cool. So that's how it's been cut out of the wood.
Very cool.
I think 3D printing about 5 years ago really picked up. There was a patent that expired and allowed a lot of innovation in the area. So we started off with rip wraps, which were a 3D printable 3D printer, and those are still around. And those spawned MakerBot at a NYC Resistor, a hackerspace in New York just like this one, where MakerBot got its start. And then we've seen from then many different companies entering this arena and starting to construct and manufacture their own machines. There's a number of those machines in this room. And yeah, I think it's a really commonplace tool. It's very accessible, very easy to understand how to use. And the best part about it is there's not a lot of prior knowledge that you need because it's additively building the parts. The 3D printer, you're just hitting print, the platform's starting off empty as a blank slate, and then building up your part layer by layer by layer. Behind us on the back wall there's a whole bunch of 3D printers that are used to print off these stamps. So these are a company called Snowshoe Stamp. These are emulating the points of contact of your fingers on the screen. And so when you push this up against your screen, your phone can register where these contact points were, and it's an authentic means of validating that you've been to a location. So if you wanted to go to a coffee shop and say, yep, I've been to the counter, I bought a coffee, you can stamp your phone on this, and it'll authenticate that you were at that particular location interfacing with this particular stamp. The challenge is, though, is every stamp needs to be unique. So 3D printing right now is really one of the only viable processes to make these. So they're able to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these stamps on 3D printers. And they're not able to make many thousands in short order, but they're still able to make every single one of these be unique. For this company, 3D printing was crucial to them getting started. And they actually got started here at Sector 67. I think you see a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of startups using 3D printers as a manufacturing approach. And I think that's going to continue to happen more and more often. As the printers keep coming down in price, it becomes more feasible to have a dozen of them or 2 dozen of them on a wall or on a shelf and be able to work those machines, nearly around the clock making your parts. So I think with 3D printing, you're going to see many different technologies come into play in the future. So right now, FDM technology, where you're laying down material like a hot glue gun does, is really commonplace. But SLA and SLS are 2 different other manufacturing approaches that yield a lot higher detail and a lot better approach to manufacturing parts. And those printers are going to become more and more popular. But I think second to that, you've still got traditional subtractive manufacturing technologies. There's actually a maker of CNC milling machines just north of us in Wanakee called Tormach. And Tormach makes CNC mills, and those mills are doing subtractive manufacturing. And so when you do subtractive manufacturing, you're putting in a block of metal or a block of steel or whatever you want to make it out of, and you're removing material. These guys are building desktop personal CNC machines. They're nearly the size of a 3D printer, but they're able to make metal parts directly. And they're making the software and the technologies much, much easier to approach. And I think that's going to be another place things are going to go as people are going to start to realize that through software solutions and through just educational solutions, you can teach people how to use a lot of these machines that were difficult to use previously and are becoming easier and easier to use. I mean, I think the future is still going to be a big blend of these things. Really, 3D printing has enabled anybody to start manufacturing their own products on their desk. But the catch is it's limited to really what they can consume as an end consumer. But the idea of a 3D printer, though, is that every end consumer could own one of these machines. So now it falls into the hands of designers to be able to design parts that are manufacturable on a printer to be used at home. And I think as the technologies continue to improve, and as we'll see over the next 5 years, these technologies are going to become more and more advanced and more easy to use, which has really been the key innovation to date. And we're seeing a lot of startups embrace that and build their products within the confines of what the printer can make. And I think that'll continue to permeate larger manufacturers and larger companies. But the reality will become you can make more and more customized things. I would say 3D printing has definitely been a revolution over the past 5 years and going to be going forward from there. We're going to see more and more technologies evolve and more openness around these things. And I think that's really the revolution, is this idea of being open to making things yourself, and the idea of designing things yourself and figuring out how to go about doing that is really the next step. I guess my advice for 3D printing would be, number one, don't just go out and buy a machine for yourself. First, look into the community and find out if someone else already has one, that you can go meet with them or talk with them or interact with them and find out what their experience has been. Because the whole point of a hackerspace is bringing people together. The opportunity for the 2 of you to learn together is a lot more valuable than individuals working in their homes on their own projects. On hackerspaces.org, they list all these spaces all around the world. So you can go on there and check it out and see what's out there, and there might be one right around the corner from you. You just haven't heard about it yet. There's a website called Hackaday. Hackaday shares different projects. It's essentially a project blog. So anyone can contribute a project to that. It'll get featured on the main page, and people then talk about it, and there's a huge community around that website of just people making projects. If you're interested in looking more into what we're up to, you can go to sector67.org, and we've got a lot of information on projects that are up there, the tools, the equipment that are here. And if you're ever in Madison, we do tours every Friday from 1 to 7 in the hour.